Hey Luminaires, welcome back. Today we're breaking down the Cow Control deck, the one I recently shared in my hottest meta decks this week post on Instagram. In this video, I will walk you through every stage of playing this deck, from your early game options to how to build your board, to the exact cards you need to take control, and I will also show you which cards you should mulligan at the start of the game. At its core, this deck is all about control. The challenge, of course, is surviving long enough to get to that point, and I will show you exactly how to make it happen. Let's start with the early game. These are the cards that set the pace for everything that follows. Clarabelle, Tipo, Develop Your Brain, Vision of the Future, and Sail the Asteroid Sea. Clarabelle is your most important card. She might not seem impressive on her own, but she is the key to unlocking your 7-cost Clarabelle shift on turn 5. On top of that, later in the game, she doubles as item removal. That's huge against decks that run Emerald Chromacon, which can bounce back cards to your hand whenever you banish one of their characters. Having an answer in your deck for item removal really helps. But what if your starting hand isn't perfect? That's where Develop Your Brain comes in. On turn 1, it lets you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, pick one, and put the other one at the bottom of your deck. It's a simple way to find what you're looking for, whether it's Tipo, Sail the Asteroid Sea, or even the Clarabelle shift if you're missing that card in your hand. Another great option for your early game is Vision of the Future. This card lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You will pick one for your hand and the rest will be put on the bottom of your deck. It's really helpful to find a missing key card, or if you already see your opponent developing their board and you need answers like You're Welcome or Mother Knows Best. Now let's talk about Tipo. Tipo ramps up your inkwell by letting you place any cards from your hand face down and exert it, even on inkable cards. That's incredibly powerful in this deck. On top of that, he is another character on the board, which means later you can shift him into Baymax, who has universal shifts. Sail the Asteroid Sea gives you another way to grow your inkwell by letting you ink an extra card this turn. Unlike Tipo, this card must be inkable. But what makes this card great is that it replaces itself, since you draw a card after you play it. And finally, if you miss your 1-drop Clarabelle, don't panic. You can always play the 3-cost Clarabelle on turn 3. She's closer to your shift anyway, and because she comes down later, she's harder for your opponent to remove before you shift. In addition, she lets you draw a card if your opponent has more cards in hand, which is pretty great for making sure you're not falling behind. Once you've ramped up your inkwell, it's time to build your board. This is where we establish a strong mid-game presence while setting up our reset. The key cards here are Scrooge McDuck, Donald Duck, and Baymax. Let's start with Scrooge McDuck. At 4 costs with 5 strength and 5 willpower, he's great at removing threats and staying alive for more than 1 round. And when he's not challenging, he's also pushing the game forward by questing for 2 lore every turn. Tough to banish, reliable, and useful. Then there's Donald Duck. When you play him, you get to put the top card of your deck straight into your inkwell. That is great to ramp up your inkwell and giving you more ink to play cards. Donald also quests for 2 lore each turn, so with him on the board, you're growing your inkwell and getting closer to 20 lore. And then we have Baymax. This is one of the most flexible cards in Disney Lorcana. Thanks to Universal Shift, you can pay 4 ink to shift him on top of any character. Usually you will shift Tipo or Clarabelle or any other card you don't need. When you do, he enters completely healed. With 5 strength and 5 willpower and 2 lore, the Baymax shifts give you a powerhouse at a discount. Together, Scrooge, Donald, and Baymax give you the power you need to reach your late game. They're not just strong bodies, they're also lore engines that help you get closer to winning the game while you prepare to reset the board. Now comes the most exciting part, taking control of the game. This is where Cow Control really shines. The star of the show? Under the Sea. This is your reset button, your be prepared moment. It costs 8, but since it's a sing together song, you rarely pay the full price. and the effect is brutal. It sends all opposing characters with 2 strength or less to the bottom of their deck. Not the discard pile, the bottom of the deck. Against aggro decks with a full board of small characters, this one card wipes them out completely. And since they don't go to the discard, there is no way for your opponent to recover them. How would we use this card? Let's look at the 2 main scenarios. Scenario 1. You have 2 characters on the board. In this example, we have Tipo and Clarabelle. We shift Baymax on top of Tipo, then the characters sing Under the Sea together. Suddenly, their entire board of low-strength characters are gone, and you're left with a strong Baymax plus your Clarabelle who's ready for her shift. Scenario 2. You combine Heads Held High with Under the Sea. Here's how it works. Heads Held High lets you remove up to 3 damage from your characters and gives all opposing characters -3. That means characters who were safe from Under the Sea at 5 strength are now vulnerable. So if we play Heads Held High followed by Under the Sea, we can clear all characters with up to 5 strength. This combo is amazing. For example, in this scenario, we have Baymax, 7 cost Clarabelle, and Donald Duck, and I have 8 ink in my inkwell. I would be able to sing together Heads Held High with my characters, and then I play Under the Sea from my hand. Once the board is cleared, the goal is to keep it that way. That's where your bounce characters come in. In this deck, we play Mother Knows Best, You're Welcome, and Basil. That last one might surprise some people. Mother Knows Best is great in both early and late game. Early on, it can bounce away threats, and later after you reset the board, you can immediately bounce back any card they play to their hands. You're Welcome goes a step further. It shovels a character, item, or location back into the deck. Perfect for cards you don't want to see again, like Emerald Chromacon, Hades, or Elsa. And the card is not only good against your opponent, you can target your own character, shuffle it back, and draw 2 cards. Sometimes that card draw is exactly what you need to keep your momentum going. Your Welcome is great to remove characters from the board after your reset, leaving your opponent struggling to add characters to the board. And then there's Basil. When he enters play, he bounces back a character to the hand, which is great after a reset because it helps you keep your opponent's board empty while you quest. What makes Basil even more amazing is that when he quests, your opponent has to discard a card. That's double disruption. Another way to keep control when the board is cleared is to play John Silver. This card lets you choose an opposing character to become reckless during your turn, which means they'll be forced to attack and therefore remove themselves from the board. So the plan is simple. Clear the boards, then keep it that way with bounce, discard, and reckless effects. Meanwhile, we will use Clarabelle and Donald Duck to keep your hand full so you never run out of options. Clarabelle is one of the key cards in this deck. Once she's on the board, you will always refill your hand until it matches your opponent's at the end of the turn. That's where the 4-cost Donald Duck comes in. At the start of your turn, he gives both players an extra card. That might sound like a bad idea, but trust me on this one. In this deck, it's exactly what you want. The more cards your opponent has, the more Clarabelle will draw for you, turning Donald's downside into a big advantage. And it doesn't stop there. With cards like You're Welcome and Basil, you can feed your opponent even more cards. In the meantime, you can empty your own hand by playing characters and inking. By the end of your turn, you want to have emptied your hand as much as you can, so that Clarabelle can fully refill it again. Just be aware that this strategy doesn't work well with decks like Amber Steel, Emerald Steel, and Amber Amethyst. All the extra card draw you're handing out just really helps them win faster. Alright, let's talk mulligans. A strong opening hand can make all the difference, especially with a deck like this that needs setup. I will walk you through 3 hands and what I would keep. In this hand, we have Mother Knows Best, Clarabelle, Scrooge McDuck, Tipo, Vision of the Future, 3-cost Clarabelle, and another Clarabelle. Here I would keep Tipo, Vision of the Future, 3-cost Clarabelle, and the 7-cost Clarabelle. This guarantees I can shift my Clarabelle on turn 5, I will get card selection with Vision of the Future, and Tipo helps me build up my Inkwell, and from there, I'm hoping to draw Syldia's Right Sea to ramp up my Inkwell. In this opening, we have Develop Your Brain, Basil, 5-cost Donald Duck, 4-cost Donald Duck, Baymax, Scrooge McDuck, and Clarabelle. I would keep Clarabelle, the 4-cost Donald Duck, and Develop Your Brain. Clarabelle is great for setting up my shift in case I don't draw the 1-cost Clarabelle. Donald Duck helps me set up my card draw plan, and Develop Your Brain is there for my opening while providing card selection. With this mulligan, I would hope to get cards like Syldia's Right Sea or Tipo to build up my Inkwell. This hand contains Basil, Mother Knows Best, 2 copies of You're Welcome, John Silver, Scrooge McDuck, and Develop Your Brain. Here I would keep Develop Your Brain to have an opening play. I might also consider You're Welcome. It would be great to have one in my hand in case of emergencies, and if not needed, I would be able to ink him. The rest I would toss back since they cannot be inked or cost too much. With the right mulligan decisions, you can set yourself up for a smooth early game. So what makes this deck shine? This deck is extremely good at ramping up your Inkwell. With cards like Tipo, Donald, and Syldia's Right Sea, you will be able to play high-cost characters quicker than most decks. Another advantage is card draw. Cards like Clarabelle and Donald Duck help you refill your hand turn after turn, while cards like You're Welcome help you draw 2 cards when you don't have a Clarabelle or Donald on the board. With this deck, you rarely run out of options. Lastly, this deck really shines because of its control tools. With bounce effects, discard pressure, and Under the Sea, you can constantly disrupt your opponent's board. Something to keep in mind with this deck is that you can have a slow start if you don't have the right cards in your hand. Without Tipo or Syldia's Right Sea, you can miss out on your tempo and it could take away your early advantage. Another weakness, aggro decks. Those can be overwhelming when you don't draw the right answers. Even though Under the Sea clears the board, you need time to set that up. Sometimes you don't have that time and you need an answer now, or you don't draw the cards you need. Finally, bounce effects can backfire. If you return in cards like Hades, Elsa, or Basil, that benefits your opponent when replayed. So you don't want those effects being repeated. Here's the full Cow Control deck list. You will notice a lot of cards run in force, but there are some exceptions. We only play 2 copies of 3-cost Clarabelle since we already have a 1-drop version. Baymax only has 2 cards since he's an inkable and mainly used as a shift target in the early gameplay. Later in the game, you would rather see John Silver, Basil, or Clarabelle, so the count reflects that priority. If you're looking to experiment, there are a few options you could try. Bend to My Will is a fun one. Since it discards your opponent's hand, for example, imagine playing Clarabelle, refilling your hand at the end of your turn, and then on the next turn, playing Bend to My Will. Suddenly, your opponent has no options. Hades is another interesting choice, since he can put your opponent's character into the Inkwell, giving you even more control over their board. If you would like to try this deck yourself, you can find it on Dreamborn. Just scan the QR code on the screen to save it in your collection. And that's it, the full breakdown of the Sapphire Emerald Cow Control deck. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this guide, hit the like button and please subscribe for more Lorcana videos. And of course, let me know in the comments what you think of this deck. Until next time, bye!